Hey, my friends, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and I want to contrast two things for you. Thing number one is the United States presidential election of 2020, the results of which are coming in as I sit here right now recording this. I don't know who's winning. I don't know who's not winning. I know I am exhausted of it. I saw a poll today that said that Election Day 2020 was considered by 55% of those surveyed in my country to be the most stressful day of their lives. You've seen the ads, you've seen the tweets, you've seen the way people have treated each other, you've hung around on Facebook, you've experienced the cost of thinking the wrong thing in your relationships. You've probably experienced friction you've never felt before with people you love, maybe even in your immediate family. Maybe you've lost friendships over it. You've experienced the wrath of self-righteousness and judgment from people who cannot tolerate your wrong think in any way. And the sad thing about this is no matter what you like politically, you're nodding your head in agreement to this because you've felt it in one way or another, even though the two flavors in my country are a little bit different. This pressure, this weight, this burden is something everyone is feeling right now. Okay, there's thing number one. I told you we were going to do a contrast. The thing so burdensome that 55% of my countrymen and countrywomen would say it is the most stressful day of their entire lives. I want to contrast that with this. These words are in red from Jesus. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Oh, what's it been? 6 months ago, 100 episodes ago, maybe more when we got into the Sermon on the Mount, it became evident to me, and I imagine to you, because the text is pretty clear as we talked about this, that what Jesus was articulating was not an invitation to a religious addendum to whatever we were going to do anyway. He was not articulating another layered demographic or special interest that people might want to sign up for to mix in with the rest of the tincture or cocktail of all of our other interests that ultimately boils down to worldly power, political power, being able to exercise your own force or to weaponize the force of the government on your behalf to make other people do your things and feel more in control of your lives. Don't get defensive. I understand. You might want to. I might want to if I was hearing you say something like that to me. Like, oh, you're minimizing all of these gigantic issues. Okay. Maybe I actually am guilty of that charge a little bit because Jesus seems to be minimizing a lot of the issues. He minimized the giant issues of his day, which to the people of that day were life and death, the most stressful days of their lives, the biggest thing, the biggest debate. Nothing could ever be a bigger crisis than the wrong things that are going on, than the stupid Romans, than the dumb Hellenizing forces of people who want to crush our traditional religion and make it more Greekified. All of these things were no doubt massive pressure points. But Jesus talks about this otherworldly kingdom. He talks about this thing that has a different set of values, a different currency that you trade in, a different mindset, a different set of priorities. And then he invites people to it. That's really funny because the only time you get invited to anything in the world of politics and world values is come election season. The rest of the time, it's my way or the highway. But once every 2, 4, 6 years, people need your blessing, permission to keep inflicting on people whatever they were going to inflict on people. And that burden is real and that pressure is real, but Jesus isn't doing that. We don't see anything in his description of himself as king or the kingdom that he is initiating that is a request for your support. He doesn't hold himself out like that at all. He doesn't have his hat in his hand, just begging you for to please like me, just enough that I can get established as king and then I can have the power to do things I want to do. There's none of that nonsense at all. He rather holds himself out as the one true, real, eternal authority who is so comfortable in his own skin, so comfortable with the reality of his authority that there's simply an invitation for you to participate, to join the truest, realest thing that is the kingdom of God. It seems like things get better every couple of years after an election. People kind of ratchet it down. Maybe they're tired. I mean, midterms are a bummer in my country. After the election, maybe 6 months in, people are ready to think about something else, and it gets better, and it seems like maybe we could like each other better. But unfortunately, we have institutionalized this burden. So just about the time you might start trying to work things out with your friends, family members, neighbors, co-workers, classmates who see things a little bit differently than you, it's time to pick a 1 or a 0 again. And everybody who doesn't think your thing is a demonic monster who wants to destroy the world and wants everyone to die. And literally everybody on the other team could say the exact same thing the other way. And we get whipped into this frenzy. We get told to hate and dislike and mistrust and lie to, and ends justify the means in whatever ways we need to anybody who thinks the wrong things. And we get ratcheted back up into this frothing frenzy of anger and clutchiness and clinginess, holding on as tightly as we can to whatever power or ideas or modicum of control, that even if it's an illusion that we might be able to hang on to. And the closer we get to election day, the more that tension ratchets up and the veins in our necks are popping out and the anger is barely something we can control. And then we get the election in and some stuff happens and we're not happy about it, and it cools down again for a while. What a miserable burden. Think about that. If you are someone who lives in my country, that has been the rhythm of your entire adult life. All of it. Every time we start to let the burden go and think in terms of values that might be greater or better, it's time to ratchet that sucker up again, because anger and tension equals power. And I, for one, am sick of it. It is refreshing beyond measure that Jesus holds himself out as the king of everything, with the truest, realist reality, the truest, realist set of values, the set of values and the currency and the spirit, the ethos of a thing that is what everybody wants, whether they admit it or not, whether they know it or not. It's perfect. There is this still, small, cool, calm, confident voice of invitation. Some people are going to sign up. Some people are going to sit it out. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Does that sound like you? I feel weary and burdened. This seems like it must be directed to exactly me, and I will give you rest. 55% of my countrymen and countrywomen today, in response to a poll, were implicitly begging for rest. Stop with the ads. Stop with the anger. Stop with the vitriol. Stop with the hyperbolic language. Give me rest. And you know which candidate in our country promises that? Neither. Nope, the two parties, what they promise is war, ongoing fighting until the bad ideas are ultimately crushed, and then you can finally feel safe from the bad things the bad other half of the country are going to do. They don't promise you rest. They promise you eternal war, and war is peace, and peace is war, and right is left, and up is down, and true is false. But Jesus says, in contrast, world kingdom stuff equals a burden that you cannot possibly shoulder. You cannot bear this forever. It is soul destroying. But here is something that is truly restful. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Would you characterize anything you saw this political season, last political season, the one before that, in each and every one of these most important elections of our entire lifetimes, because it is always the most important election of our lifetimes? Would you characterize any of that as gentle and humble in heart? I'll give you a second. Yeah, me neither. They're not our friends. I'm not saying don't vote. I'm not saying that nothing good could ever come from government or politics. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm saying that stuff is world kingdom stuff. And if you feel beat down by it, then Jesus is talking to you here. If you feel refreshment in that list of beatitudes, that completely upside down set of values, blessed are the meek, blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, blessed are the peacemakers. If you feel a draw to that and exhaustion by what you've been subjected to, what you've had inflicted upon you for the last however many months, 18 months of campaign season now? Well, then maybe there's an opportunity here to take some rest and take some hope in the words of a king who doesn't go away and who doesn't have to scramble and try to make you mad to get reelected every 4 years. He's eternal. He just doesn't die. He doesn't end. The power will never be handed off to somebody who might be lesser down the road. It's an eternal king of an eternal kingdom with values that transcend political left, political right, authoritarian, libertarian. It transcends all of that with something that is beautiful and unbreakable and eternal and restful. We might not recognize recognize or live fully in this kingdom right now. I think we're part in it in this time in life, and I think Jesus promises a complete realization of that kingdom at some future time. But even in this meantime, his yoke is easy and his burden is light. You contrast that to the powers that be, the authorities that are constantly chirping at you, constantly manipulating at you to get them to lend them your voice so they can wield that power totally on your behalf for the benefit of everyone. You compare those people to what Jesus is saying, and the agenda that is in view for your life and for the world in general is not even comparable. This Jesus thing is infinitely better. Further, consider the original audience and what it was like for them. There's no difference. The political clash and the culture wars that were going on in the first century in Jesus' part of the world were greater than the political clash and the cultural wars that are going on right now. They got it. Jesus was not speaking to a naive audience filled with simpleton idiots. He was speaking to people who were sophisticated, understood the pressures you're feeling right now, and the stuff he was saying to them is a pushback on the social, religious, political structures and world values that were going on then. Further, the invitation was for them to sign up for a king who doesn't go away and is good, for kingdom values that are redemptive and good and eternal for everybody, regardless of perspective, for something that outlasts the brokenness and brevity of the lifetimes we're a part of. His invitation was real then. His invitation was real now. And as we work our way through the book of Matthew, we are going to see more and more clearly how that kingdom goes from just a set of ideas and values that he's expressed so far to something that actually manifests, to something that you can actually picture. And so if at this point in the game you're like, yes, his yoke sounds easy and his burden sounds light, and yes, I am weary and burdened and I am ready for rest, but so far I just have like some ideas and the beginnings of a picture of what the character of the king would be like, I need to see more. Awesome. Hang with me. It's coming. As we get into the next third of the book of Matthew, those things are going to take more shape than they have thus far. I think you're going to find them life-giving and light and encouraging and the opposite of how you're probably feeling right this moment, whether you like the team that's going to end up winning or you like the team that's going to end up losing. Thanks for processing this with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.